Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Center podcast. I'm Emiliya Zhivotovskaya, your host and founder of the Flourishing Center. We are training the change agents of the world and equipping them with research-based tools for healthy, happy, and successful living, and we're so grateful that you're here.
This episode is a practitioner profile, where we highlight ordinary people that are doing extraordinary things. Each practitioner is a graduate of the Certificate in Applied Positive Psychology program from the Flourishing Center. Find out the exciting ways that people are putting the science into practice in their work and how they use positive psychology in their lives with individuals, organizations, and communities to help them thrive.
Thanks for listening, and let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Join me in welcoming Kelly Miller to today's Positive Psychology Practitioner Profile. She has created a company called A Brighter Purpose, which you're going to learn about in a little bit. It is a company that she is starting with her whole family, her son, her daughter, and her husband, in an attempt to chronicle their stories of how they put positive psychology into practice and share lots of resources with the world. She's also a newly named author and will tell us about the children's book that she's created that brings positive psychology to children, teaching them to deal with their stress and their anxiety. Now, something you might not know about this beautiful mother of two teenagers is that she also competed in a bikini competition last year, which is a little fun, unknown fact about her that I know required her stepping just a little bit out of her comfort zone, but that's super cool. And Kelly is joining us from Northern Virginia, just outside of DC. Kelly, thank you so much for being here and sharing your bright light and your wisdom with us.
I'm very grateful to be here. Thanks for having me.
And so, Kelly, before we dive into your story, tell us, what is A Brighter Purpose?
It is an LLC that was created in order to encompass what is the vision of our future for myself and for my family, and that we are a business of service. We use coaching services as well as doing workshops in positive psychology, along with writing in the field to be able to bring as much knowledge as possible to ignite change in as many people as possible.
That's beautiful, Kelly. And I know that you've turned this into a family affair. So tell me a little bit more about how old are your kids and how your husband and your family is getting involved in this business of yours?
Sure. My son is 16 and my little girl is now 12, going to be 13 in 2 months. Crazy as that sounds. And my husband has taken the role of CFO, but we all have had a hand in building what this looks like. And we all have discussions about how it affects our family and how we want to show up in the world. And it's not just about me. It's actually not about me at all. It's all about having that heart of service. So our family goes out and we do volunteer endeavors, and we talk about a brighter purpose in a way that is not about anything but service. And it affects every single person in the family, because being in a family, you have to respect each other's time, and the kids are very supportive in building what we want to show up in the world.
That is incredible, Kelly. I love hearing how your family has come together to spread this knowledge and to put these things into practice. And I'm curious, because I know sometimes getting teenagers involved into these types of things can be met with a lot of resistance or eye rolls. And so can you tell us more about, how did you get your teenagers on board to this idea that Mom had?
Well, my son has been definitely a bit more of a challenge, but once we got into speaking to strengths, he was very interested in knowing what his strengths were and really latched on to that idea. And so when we speak to strength to him and how he's working in the world to bring those strengths about, you see a shift in his energy and his openness to speaking with us, not just about strengths, but how those actually show up in his world. And my little girl is very curious. She's always interested to hear more. She's got pictures of her brain in her room and wants to know more information. She's just kind of a scientific learner and wants to know as much as she can.
It sounds like a beautiful project to be involved in. And so tell us, what brought you to this work in the first place?
Well, I have an undergraduate degree in psychology, and my main focus had been in neuropsychology and working with traumatic brain injury survivors. And I became a mom and just sort of went off my career path for a while in raising my children. And I lost my father last year. And I was just sort of researching where happiness came from. I had seen a Time magazine in the market and picked it up, and it was The Science of Happiness. And from there I just started researching and wanting to know more, and of course the Flourishing Center popped up. And so when I saw that you offered a course, I was really, really excited to get started and knew that it was something pulling me forward and where I belonged in the world.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I know that your story, in terms of your upbringing, started off as pretty conventional. And then you met this man in your 20s, and that led to 20 years of living all over the world, which I'm sure also informs the work that you're doing. So tell us more about that.
Absolutely. I met my husband at a very tender age when I was just starting out in my career, working with people who had been disabled in some way find employment. And once I met him, my career path sort of changed. And we got married, and I had a couple of babies, and it had always been both of our families' kind of background to have one parent stay home. And as an active duty officer in the Coast Guard, that kind of required me to stay home with the kids. And so we've been moving around from state to state for 20 years.
Wow, that's incredible. And so tell us more about what you find yourself currently doing now and the work that you're spreading in the world.
When I first started A Brighter Purpose, I wasn't really uh, sure about who I wanted to serve. But my daughter, who is now 12, was suffering at the time I started in CAP with generalized anxiety disorder. And I didn't know how to help her at the time. Thank goodness for CAP, because it started to give me some of the tools that we desperately needed as parents to be able to help guide her and give her some coping skills to be able to handle what she was facing. And through that, we started to write what we call our launch project, and that is Jane's Worry Elephant. That's the book that we currently published that just happened last week. And along with serving parents to help them understand that anxiety is something that is highly treatable, and having skills to be able to cope in real life settings is something that parents can have a very strong influence on. It's really an area that I feel is desperately needed in the world. And knowing what I know now, I feel very capable to help parents to do just that.
Beautiful. And how is it that you've been working with and serving parents?
Well, I've had various clients. I've done some workshops as well in a couple of schools here in Fairfax County, and I've worked with individual parents on helping them understand what anxiety is and just sort of teaching that capacity, and then helping them to develop some coping skills with their children so that they're understanding the how of what, calming themselves in the moment to be able to face whatever they're facing, whatever fear that is. And that's been really an exciting part of my work, because we've seen just the kids improve and have a brighter awareness of where they are in their world. And it's just been very fulfilling and rewarding.
That's beautiful. And I'm curious, in what ways has positive psychology influenced your personal life, especially with your family?
Oh, in every possible facet of our family. My husband, God bless him, is a very open-minded person, and he listens to everything that I've learned and has tried to implement some of the things actually in the Coast Guard with a lot of the leadership things that we went through with CAP. As parents, it has strengthened us. As a couple, it has strengthened us. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to narrow it down, because everything that we have learned has impacted some area of our life.
And what are some of the practices that you use the most yourself?
Loving kindness meditation was one that we started right away utilizing with myself and my daughter, and that has helped her to to improve a lot with her sleep patterns and her ability to show up how she wants to. We use journaling. Gratitude is a really, really big part of our household. It's my number one character strength. And so knowing that, it just comes really easy for me to start putting things into practice in our house. So we have a gratitude blackboard where we'll send messages to each other every day. And we kind of change up the projects that we use with gratitude on a monthly basis.
And Kelly, tell us, I know that this career path or the shift into positive psychology came for you after having had a successful career that was unfulfilling. So tell us more about what it took for you to make the shift and what it's been like to become a business owner and how it's been impacting you.
Well, I had started with a network marketing company and has a wonderful community, wonderful things going on. There was sort of a status crisis that I was having and putting a lot of value on earning a certain amount and having a certain thing. And it just started to not feel authentically defined by me at a point. And then when I started to learn more about positive psychology, it made sense because my purpose just wasn't in that area. I just decided that I was not a professional network marketer. So even though I do have an entrepreneurial mindset and love setting my own hours and setting my own prices and setting my own path, I didn't feel as at home with network marketing as I feel with positive psychology. It's very different for me.
And most recently, I know that you've written a book. Tell us more about that.
Yes, we're very excited. It was just launched a few days ago, actually, and it's called Jane's Worry Elephant. It is a children's book that is based around positive psychology coping skills that I learned through CAP and along with some other research that I dove into. It has a story that is about a little girl who's very, very similar to a little girl that lives here, and what she was facing and how she was feeling during the time that she hit this crisis with anxiety. And her journey became these developing skills to be able to handle herself in real world settings. And so this is a self-help guide for kids with anxiety. So it has a fictional story, but it also has a parent guide and strategies for helping kids to be able to learn how to self-soothe and to cope.
Beautiful. And for our listeners, can you tell us more about give us a little sneak preview of what some of those strategies are?
So one of the most popular that has been showing up in social media is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique, which is acknowledging 5 things that you see around you. It could be anything, a tree, a house, a car, etc. And then 4 things that you can touch around you, 3 things that you hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. Let me give you an example of when I used this with my daughter. It was actually recently. She was in a startup program for middle school to get familiar with the school setting, and she was feeling really panicky, and her breath started to get rapid, and her heart rate started to get rapid. And so I stayed as calm as I could, which is one of the main keys in parenting anxiety. And I just gently asked her if she would be willing to do the 5-4-3-2-1. And she immediately started to do it. And her breath slowed down and her heart rate slowed down and she was ready to go. So having these coping skills is just a great thing to have in your pocket as a parent.
That's awesome. And what are some of the other things that you include in this book?
There are a bunch of different coping skills because not all of them will work for each child, as anxiety and fear are all different for each human. But some of the things that we had used were the worry boxes. So actually having it was a tissue box with some pieces of paper next to it so that when a worry thought or something a little bit fearful would come up, she would be able to write that down and put it in the box so that we could deal with it or work it out at a later time, because you're not always able to handle all of the worry in those real-time moments. So that was another one that we used. And I taught her havening, which she has used multiple times and has been really, really helpful for her.
Beautiful. And those of you listening on the line, havening is a beautiful psychosensory therapy created by Doctors Rubin, twin doctors here in New York City. One is a dentist, the other one is a medical doctor. And it's a simple process of actually crisscrossing your arms. I'll give you one of them. There's three specific exercises, but one of them is crisscrossing your arms across your chest and then moving your hands, basically stroking the side of your arms from shoulder to elbow and shoulder to elbow in a downward stroke, paced in a way that's really calming and soothing. And it's a great way to create a relaxation response in your body pretty instantaneously. So I love, Kelly, to know that you're using that with your family.
Oh, yeah. I'm really grateful that you taught it to us. It's been very, very helpful. Very, very much so.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us, Kelly. And before we ask you about ways that people can learn more about your family projects and this new book that you've created and the things that you're doing in the world, I would love to ask you a question that we ask all of our interviewees. And here at the Flourishing Center and in the field of positive psych and mind-body medicine, our motto is self-care is healthcare. So what are some of the self-care practices that you've adopted since your studies that support you?
Definitely the loving kindness meditation. That's an everyday practice for us. And we are more active than we ever were before, realizing the importance of moving our body and really taking care of physically and how that affects psychological well-being. We've really been, as a family, pushing more movement and incorporating it into daily life. I also am a big believer in calming everything down to really get into the thought belief, the ABCs, to be able to work out what my thoughts are and what my beliefs around those thoughts are, so that I can show up how I want to. It's helped me tremendously on a daily basis.
And for our listeners that aren't familiar with an ABC is, tell us more about that.
So the ABCs, as part of cognitive behavioral therapy, where the A stands for an activating event, the B stands for a belief, and the C is a consequence of your actions around that belief. And slowing down my thoughts to really understand what my beliefs about a situation are before reacting has helped me to lessen an angry response. It's enabled me to keep a calm head in a lot more situations that I didn't have prior to the training.
Beautiful. And so tell us more about where people can learn more about your work.
I have a website that is a www.abrighterpurposecoach.com. And I also there's a blog attached that is called Brighter Purpose Living. And that is about how we have employed positive psychology into our family and how it is being used in real life settings. I also write for the positivepsychology.com. I just have articles that they have given me a blessed opportunity to write about. And you can also find A Brighter Purpose on Facebook. We have a page on there as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kelly, for sharing your wisdom and your light and bringing your family together into this beautiful mission.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, and thank you for all that you have taught me. I can't have enough gratitude for what I've learned through the Flourishing Center.
This practitioner profile episode is brought to you by the Certificate in Applied Positive Psychology program, the world's fastest growing practitioner training with over 15 programs running every year in 5 cities and online internationally. Discover how you too can turn your passion for well-being, science, and helping others into a career where you help people thrive. Learn more about how you can become a certified positive psychology practitioner at getcertifiedinpp.com.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I want to encourage you to tell us, what would you love to hear more about? Is there an area of positive psychology you would love to get some more information on in terms of the research? Give us a shout out at info@theflourishingcenter.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you a wonderful flourishing day.